Hi, my name is Özgür Yılmaz. I am doing my doctorate in the Department of Journalism at Istanbul University. I am 28. I think that the fields of political science and communication studies have become closer to each other on many issues recently. Therefore, I will try to prove this thesis through the concepts I have determined. That's why I am recording this podcast. I hope you fun listening. Our first concept is body-machine interfaces. Since the concept of the cyborg was introduced in the late 1950s, the idea of integrating humans and machines has recurred in science fiction and popular culture. Over the last 2 decades, rapid progress has been made in the development of body-machine interfaces that provide a connection between a human and an external machine. These interfaces have the ability to both extend human capabilities and replace them. The general goal of body-machine interfaces is to allow the user to have full or shared control over the device through signals derived from their body. This makes it different from autonomously controlled systems where the machine attempts to retain full command, bearing occasional external interventions from the user. Body-machine interfaces have been produced to allow the incorporation of relatively low-level and easier-to-use biological signals in robotic applications as an alternative to low-dimensional control spaces. When it comes to the kinematic and dynamic requirements of tasks performed by the human arm, electromyography signals consisting of superimposed activation patterns of the relevant motor units have been used for therapeutic purposes in the field of healthcare. The development of body-machine interfaces can be used to make a user more competent by taking advantage of the natural control they can exert over their own body movements. Because human movement exhibits individual characteristics depending on a variety of factors including physical condition, age and experience, body-machine interfaces still require significant learning time and effort to achieve sufficient capability in teleoperation. Body-machine interfaces can be connected to drones with recent developments in the field. Technological development in the field of drones also brings up the issue of surveillance. Therefore, it can be said that today there is an increasing connection between body-machine interfaces and surveillance. Our second concept is cognitive capitalism. Cognitive capitalism is a product of the structural change phase that occurred after the crisis of Fordism. In this process, production and labor organization have undergone a transformation. The information revolution has a central place in this transformation process. Cognitive capitalism traces back to the three crises at the origins of Fordism. Firstly, the Taylorist forms of labor have become inapplicable. Secondly, the social reproduction of labor power has been realized cognitively, such as health, education, and research. And finally, the power of mental labor has increased with the democratization of education. As a result of the crisis that Fordism entered, the contradiction between labor and capital took a new form. So it is marked by the hegemony of knowledge in the hands of those with a widespread intellectuality and the driving force of producing knowledge through knowledge based increasingly on the immaterial or mental character of labor. Cognitive capitalism digests the potential for freedom inscribed in the general intelligence society of capital. Cognitive capitalism should be considered with cognitive labor. Cognitive labor is present in every production activity. Cognitive capitalism does not eliminate the production logic of industrial capitalism. With the subordination of science to capital, the capitalist strategy of standardization and commodification is reproduced. Cognitive capitalism is not only characterized by the development of information and communication technologies, but also describes the development that occurs with the widespread use of these technologies in production. Cognitive capitalism develops in a network, non-linear manner, and hierarchies are often associated with social control of the environment. Cognitive capitalism plays an important role in the production of information labor, digital communication technologies, and information commodities in today's capitalism. Cognitive capitalism is associated with media, communication culture, digitalization, and the internet. Cognitive capitalism, which is based on the accumulation of immaterial capital, the dissemination of knowledge, and the dynamic role of the knowledge economy, is a type that comes after commercial and industrial capitalisms. Cognitive capitalism is a new historical accumulation process and considers the cognitive and mental dimensions of labor. Our third concept is bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is a scientific subdiscipline related to genetics and genomics that involves the use of computer technology to collect, store, analyze, and disseminate biological data, information about DNA, and amino acid sequences. Scientists use databases that organize and index such biological information to improve control over health and disease, and in some cases as part of medical care. Thinkers such as Daniel Bell, Alan Turing, and more recently Manuel Castells have argued over the last 2 decades that saturation of the market for manufactured goods would lead to the emergence of a new mode of production. They argued that this mode of production would be based not on industrial development but on the production, processing, distribution, and consumption of knowledge-based goods and services. Information itself will become an important commodity, the access and control of which will increasingly form the basis of competitive advantage in the global economy. Control is the keyword here. Knowledge-based products are very easily distributed and circulated through new network technologies, but they can also be very easily copied. This makes the task of preventing unauthorized reproduction of these works and the resulting loss of income particularly difficult to prevent. Because these information products can move so easily between and beyond existing national and international jurisdictions, they have become subject to new forms of global regulation. Global regulations have a dual and arguably contradictory role in this new informational economy. On the one hand, it was introduced to facilitate the exchange of knowledge-based goods and services through the development of new markets and exchange routes. On the other hand, it is also increasingly relied upon to restrict the unlicensed use and circulation of the same resources. Research has revealed not only the emergence of new global markets and networks of computerized and digitized information exchange, but also the challenges of effectively organizing these new transmission spaces. Translating genetic resources in the new, less physical and more informational forms allows them to circulate much more quickly along exchange pathways, but also makes it much more difficult to keep track of where they go and who is using them. It is possible to predict that the difficulties that other industries have met in their attempts to monitor or control the unlicensed dissemination, use, and reproduction of their knowledge-based resources may now also arise with respect to the unlicensed dissemination, use, and reproduction of bioinformational resources. Surveillance of bioinformational data for health purposes is becoming widespread in many countries. However, situations where surveillance shifts to the field of social control are common, and bioinformational data can also be used for this purpose. For example, China's social credit system is a suitable example of this control phenomenon. In China, the government is implementing a social credit system to combine a financial credit score system with a broader measure of social and civic integrity for all citizens and companies. China is moving beyond the function of measuring workplaces' performance and personal health related tracking to tracking one's purchasing and consumption history, interpersonal relationships, political activities, as well as one's location history. China has also begun to implement a system of rewards and punishments that rewards those who follow the government's ideals and punishes those who deviate from those ideals. While it is convenient to digitize daily social, political, and economic life, China's social credit system offers a vision of what could happen if democratic countries continue to do so without stricter data use policies. Our fourth concept is bio-capitalism. Bio-capitalism draws attention to the way materials obtained from human bodies and non-human creatures are turned into capital and the meaning of these processes in terms of capitalist accumulation strategies. In this context, the existence of a biocapital can be mentioned. Biocapital draws attention to the processes of change and transformation between life and exchange. These transformations occur as a result of the oscillation between the process of commodification on the one hand and the formation of public available resources or public goods on the other hand. Both of these poles are subject to the control of new forms of capitalist logic that conform neither the logic of industrial capitalism nor to what is called postmodern information capitalism. Bio-capitalism is not separate from capitalism experienced today. Bio-capitalism, which has its own characteristic and is shaped on this, emerged from the institutional structure within the real drug development processes and the developments in the field of biotechnology. Information and communication technologies have been effective in the development of technologies such as nanotechnology, biotechnology, genetic engineering, etc., that are important in the emergence of biocapitalism.